I think it all began with music. I was born in London, England, and according to my mom and my dad, when I was 4, I was just like a whirling dervish whenever music was playing. It was always my response to music. And I would say 50 years later, or 60, or whatever we are at, it's music that is somehow the driving, inspiring, propelling force for me. And it was always a response to the imagination of music, to the rhythm of music, to the pathos of music, to the joie of music. And that's when I started dancing. And I took dance lessons at a little ballet school, starting at the age of 4. And then the teachers suggested to my mom that I should probably look at a more professional school. And I went to the Arts Educational School in London and did my ballet and acting till the age of 9. And when I was 9, my whole family came to Canada. And it was absolutely essential to me that I continue my ballet lessons. And I began actually at Boris Volkoff. I was there for a month or 2 or 3, and then moved to Betty Oliphant's studio on Sherbourne Street. And from there, I remember Miss Oliphant saying, when I did a little audition for her, I remember her saying, "Oh, Miss Franca's going to be really interested in you." And I pictured Miss Franca as some little old lady with white bouncy curls. And when I in fact met Miss Franca, actually it was for my first ballet exam, my first Cicchetti ballet exam. There was this elegant, beautiful, soignée woman who just basically changed my life. Both of those women were dominant forces in young ballet dancers' lives in Toronto. And they set standards of style and taste and discipline that permeated all of us who went up through that training have carried all those principles throughout our lives, throughout our careers. And it's inestimable what it is that force and belief and vision of an art form, and how to get into the essence of it and become a product of it, that is really attributable in my case and in many of our cases who were at the National Ballet School and then into the company, of these two extraordinary, visionary pioneers, really. A year or 2 after I was in the company, Eric Broom came and mounted his La Sulfide. And there was this instant connection between us that lasted entirely through all the stages of his interaction with the National Ballet of Canada, including, of course, when he became the artistic director, and then his untimely death in, I think it's 1985. And Eric, for me, was an extraordinary inspirational force because he knew how to bring out of you ideas, dance essences that you couldn't even begin to imagine. And it was partly because he could imbue you with a sense of what grand pas de deux, or the quick movements, or roles like La Sulfide, which he cast me in, but also because he then kind of piqued something inside of me and us, anyone who had the fortune to work with him, to go, and just open up the horizons and go beyond the steps. He always talked about, I think he wrote a book, Beyond Technique, and he was a huge force in my life. You can probably count on maybe both hands over 25 years, performances that just stand out as having a magic, having something that's indescribable and indefinable. There's one or two Giselles that I did at the Met with Rudolph, which just seemed as if a magic wand had been waved over it from the moment that first note of music came out, and from the moment I first set eyes on Albrecht. Or it was a perfect melding of the technique, the steps, the incredibly beautiful music, the poignancy of the betrayal and the story, and then coming back from into the ethereal willies. And the magic about that performance was what happened between us, Rudolph and myself, what happened physically and emotionally, that perfect marriage that you strive for so, endless, countless hours. And also that sense of an audience who was completely enwrapped and part of the whole. And actually, I must say that what I learned from Rudolph was about, again, the generosity of a performance. I think that it's very easy to get caught up in what you're trying to achieve, to please people around you within the dance. And it was he who instructed me and showed me that, in fact, we were giving, and that we were changing that axis that goes horizontally, and we were turning it around so that it was a direct contact with an audience out there, that every one of those people in the audience felt that we were dancing for them, and we were receiving their energy. And those performances, again, you remember almost the date and when they were, and they're magical. So there was that Giselle. There was my first Onegin with Raymond Smith, which I had waited a year and a half with my injury to dance, and it had been so catastrophic for me when I was injured and couldn't dance it when it first came to the company. There's doing James Kadelka's Washington Square, and just finding such beauty in a character that was not particularly typical for the ballet world, because Catherine Sloper had so much to strive for, and so many things that came that challenged her and challenged her security and her insecurity, and that was a very delicate balance. And his choreography was so masterful, and it was pretty wonderful to have that, something like that created on you. I mean, that was the other part, is with dance. Is the creativity and working with choreographers on new work. Really, really important. The most important part of my career were my last years, my last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and climaxing in my farewell performances. I had a very serious knee injury. I was forced to stay away from the stage for 14 months, absolutely mid-career. I had a great season with Nureyev in New York and Sleeping Beauty in 1976, and I set off on a long set of guest tours with Fernando Bujones, and in Fort Worth, Texas, I snapped the anterior cruciate ligament of my left knee, and I didn't walk for 4 months, and I had to learn to walk again before I could dance again, and it kept me away from the stage for 14 months, and I really had to fight to get back. And maybe it's unusual or different, but for me, the flowering, the physicality, the technique, and then, of course, the marriage with the more artistic understanding of what it is I was doing came in the second half of my career. When you commit to dance, the important thing is that you're committing to a collective. You're not an island unto yourself. The important thing is that you take your ballet class, those first classes that you do in a group, and then you go through the stages of training in a school, always with people around you who are individually but also collectively committing to a very strong force, and a very demanding force, a very physically and emotionally and intellectually demanding force. You can never give enough, and yet dancers are givers. So yes, I like to talk about myself a little bit, but and I've had a glorious career in the dance, and I call that, by the way, phase one of my dance career. I have phase two, when I moved into filmmaking and expanding my horizons. But I also want to talk about something that all dancers have in common, and that is honesty and generosity and bravery and courage. You cannot tackle a single day without harnessing all of those values, and this is something that we all share. Dancers are given and work for and achieve such a set of skill sets that they can move into anything that stems out of their first career. And I had skill sets of discipline and taste and style and the ability to work, work, and to believe in what I was doing. And but really, for me, it was a revelation when I left the ballet stage that I actually could be an idea person, that I could actually expand my horizons, that I could actually continue to explore artistry through dance by dancing a life. A life, very important, is curiosity, being wanting to know how things worked, and then also being a student, because throughout your career as a dancer, for me it was in the ballet, throughout your career you're always learning. You start every single day of your life at the bar the way you do with your first class and your very last class, which could be 40 years, 50 years later. It's always the same. It's first position at the bar, pliés. And the premise under that is you're a student. There is still so much to learn. So that when you move, and when I moved and explored what it was that I could continue to work at as an artist, I was always ready to learn and always ready to say, I don't know enough, I'm a student. The important thing is, once a dancer, always a dancer. I was so hemmed in my ballet career. It's when I blossomed out of it that I understood, oh, I'm creative. I have ideas, and I know how to execute those ideas because I believe in collaboration. I've done a lot of thinking lately about sort of the different phases and how dance has permeated my life. This honor means so much to me. I think back to when I was 4 and that phase one, and I would say that that phase one of training to be a dancer, struggling, striving, having an incredibly glorious professional career, dance consumed me. And then phase two of dance in my life is that it's propelled me. It's propelled me into taking risks, moving into uncharted territory, and being creative because of the belief in artists from all disciplines, propelled by that dance sensibility, the drive, the belief in the art form. And always I come back to it, the giving. So I am touched by the honor because I am honored to be part of this collective. The Canadian dance collective that goes back 100 years or more. It's the essence of our culture. I do believe that.